Hey, what is up, Lion Nation? It's your boy, Uncle Carlos, and welcome back to the Kool Aid Corner. Today I'm going to be continuing my draft process, the draft videos. Today up next is going to be Chase Young. A lot of people see him going to the Redskins at pick number 2, but there are some bubbling stories, some rumors floating about that maybe the Redskins might want to trade out of that number 2 spot if the deal is right and move down. And if they do trade out, I'm going to imagine someone's going to offer them enough to go get a quarterback, meaning that Chase Young could fall to us at the number 3 pick in this year's NFL draft. And as far as the prospect is concerned, I think that Chase Young checks every single box as far as team need, elite talent. You know, I always say that if you're going to pick in the top 10, the chances of you getting a transcendent talent at that position or at that pick, your odds are as good as they're ever going to be. And if Chase Young falls to the Detroit Lions, he could be a game-changing, transcendent player. And we've had some defensive. I mean, we've had Robert Perche. We've had some defensive line players in the history of the Detroit Lions. Jerry Ball comes to mind. We've had a lot of defensive line players who have made big impacts on our team. But if Chase Young falls to the Detroit Lions, I think he may be the biggest. So there's a lot of hyperbole. Man, listen, I'm going to share a video of a guy that I highly respect. Okay, Kent Knoll. You'll find him on YouTube, man. He does some of the best breakdowns that I have ever seen. I'm a huge fan. I'm a big fanboy of the guy. I've learned a lot from him over the years, spending time in his channel. But I'm going to share some of that with you. Before we do that, let's get into a video about who Chase Young is himself and, how he views himself. Let's go over some tape of an interview that he did and kind of get a sense. He was talking with Greedy, kind of get a sense of who he is. I don't know about you, but I like to read people. I know it's television and they're not being themselves, but I think I get a pretty good read on what a person's like, and maybe you can too. So let's get into it.
Things like that.
So DeMatha is obviously a huge powerhouse in the conference. Do you feel like you guys have a big target on your back going into every game, and how do you deal with that?
I would say we do have a target on our back. I think we put a target on our back, even if it's not, the way we deal with it, we just, play every game. Our coach tells us every game is a big game, and we're DeMatha. And, we have to show people why that brand is nationwide. And we just got to put out every game, he says.
All right, so you got Gonzaga game tomorrow. Huge rivalry in D.C. Tell me what it's going to take to beat them, and then a little bit about how big the rivalries are in this area.
Gonzaga, I just think they're a real disciplined team. They're going to wait for us to make mistakes, and they're going to take advantage. And I think we just have to play a mistake-free game against them. I think talent-wise, I think we have them. We just got to play mistake-free. The rivalry, it's a big rivalry. It go all the way back to Coach Brooks and before Coach Brooks. He said his year when he played Gonzaga, they killed a dead deer and painted it purple and put it on the steps at DeMatha. Going there. So I think it's pretty big.
All right, cool. So how long have you personally been?
So, wow. Hey, I didn't mention that I was going to go ahead and I had gotten this clip, and I thought it was a cool clip, okay? We're getting to see this guy as a young man, and first impressions, cool customer. When you start talking about dead deers painted purple and there's no inflection in your voice, there's no change of facial expression, man, it seems like a cool customer to me, but I digress. Anyways, let's get into the Greeny video that I promised earlier and see what we get from that.
More done. Our next guest last year recorded 16 and a half sacks, which was the most in a season in Ohio State history, fourth most in a season in Big Ten history, and he did it despite not playing in every game. His name is Chase Young, and he finished fourth in the Heisman voting this year, the fourth defensive lineman ever to be a finalist. He became the first Ohio State player ever to win the Bednarik Award in a spectacular year, and Mel Kiper projects that Chase Young will be the second pick in this year's NFL draft. He would join the Bosa brothers as the third Buckeyes defensive ends drafted in the top three in the last 5 seasons, and he is a day removed from his 21st birthday. We are delighted to welcome Chase Young to Get Up. Chase, thank you for doing this. Good morning. And listen, I'm going to start right away with this. Your buddy Jeff Okuda was on yesterday, and he told us a secret. He said, you are a great singer. Now, we're not allowed to have you sing, but what is your go-to song if you are doing karaoke or something like that?
Jupiter Love by Trey Songz.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. Say that again.
Jupiter Love by Trey Songz.
Okay, very good. So what's the genre? I mean, what are the circumstances in which you are just going to get up and sing in front of a bunch of people?
I mean, I don't. I sing, you know, behind closed doors. That's probably why a lot of people don't know I sing a lot, because I don't do it in public a lot.
All right, very good. Now, you just turned 21 years old yesterday, so a happy belated birthday. These are very unusual times we're living in. How were you able to celebrate your birthday?
I didn't too much. Only person I had come over was my trainer, and I had saw some of my childhood friends earlier that day outside, you know, still trying to social distance. But, you know, I was just in the house, we were just cooling. Wasn't too much, you know, I could do for real. But, you know, it was cool. I'm just grateful to be able to turn 21. And, you know, obviously I wish it could have been different, but it's all cool.
Yeah, listen, there'll be plenty of time to celebrate starting next Friday. So let me ask you this question. Who is the best player in the 2020 NFL draft?
Me.
Tell me why.
I mean, I feel like what I put on film this year, a lot of people haven't, you know, seen that, you know, in a while since, you know, since Ndamukong Suh, since, you know, since some of the greats, you know, just from the past, man. I feel like the way I prepare for a game, nobody prepares like me. I feel like I watch the most film in the draft. I feel like, you know, I'm the hardest worker in the draft. You know, I take pride in, you know, saying that I'm the best player because I have confidence in what I do. And I know I have confidence because I prepared day in and day out for what I did on the field. So that's why I'm so confident. I can say that.
Yeah, it's not unusual. Everyone says you're the best player in this draft.
So as we get deeper into getting to know this kid, there's a theme that's coming across. He seems really, really grounded, man. I mean, 21st birthday, everything seems to just be, you know, blah day, lazy blah, whatever it is you want to call it. He just seems like a really cool customer, really even keeled. Even being asked about, you know, who he thinks is the best player in this year's draft. You know, he didn't braggadociously say, you know, here you go. If I had to describe it, quiet confidence. What he's expelling to me is a quiet confidence, and I dig it, man. I dig it. So let's continue. Let's go a little further into this one.
Let me ask you this. I'm curious about the film. When you're watching film of an opponent, what specifically are you watching? Are you watching the lineman you'll be opposite most of the game? What are you looking for and helps you the most in your preparation when you're studying film during the week?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing that I look for that helps me in games, that helps me make plays, I think it's play recognition, knowing what plays they run out of each set, knowing out of this formation, if this person is in, then, you know, it can be a pass play. I remember the Wisconsin game where I had 4 sacks. 2 of the sacks I had because I knew if 37, their running back was in the backfield, it was 90 to like 95% pass. So little things like that, I knew when he lined up in the backfield, you know, I was pinning my ears back, ready to go. So just little things.
So student of the game, check. Student of the game, check. Good to hear. Good to hear.
I'm sure that someone's prepped him on these interviews, so I don't want to, I'm not trying to sell sunshine and rainbows. I'm just trying to see, based on the questions, what kind of answers is he giving? Is he giving us intelligent, clear, concise answers? I would say yes. Thumbs up so far.
We mentioned that everyone is making the comparisons to the Bosa brothers, and you played, obviously, with Nick there at Ohio State, at least for a short time. What did you learn from those guys, particularly from Nick? What did you learn from playing with him?
I learned a lot. Just of watching him every day. Just everything, hand placement, hips, how to stay balanced when you get double teamed. Just a lot. My inside move. I know we worked on that a lot. Definitely helped me. He helped me get better with that one. But man, we watched film together before. Nick, he just a real good dude, man. He always been in my corner since day one, and he always expected great things out of me. And and that's what I tried to give him this year. So, we're gonna see what happens next year.
So when asked about, hey, how do you compare yourself with the Bosa? Where do you place yourself among that present company and whatnot? Humble answers, all kinds of humble answers. Pretty impressed with the young man. To be able to say, hey, we worked on it and being respectful and all of those things. Good interview, man. So far, what I get from just a person, what kind of a guy is he? He seems, again, like a very quietly confident young man. And I believe he has every right to be. So let's get into something else, man. Let's talk about his game. Let's look at, again, I got a guy who I highly respect, Mr. Knoll. You'll find him on YouTube. Just look up when he says breakdown. If you put in whatever player you want, go ahead and put in breakdown, and Mr. Knoll's channel will come up. We're going to get into some of his film. And, he really likes Chase Young, which makes me really like Chase Young because his analysis has a lot to do based on fact, and he points out that fact very eloquently. He's a master of film. Let's get into it, man. Let's go over Chase Young, the prospect, the player. Let's take a look.
A lot of ways to sack a quarterback. You can win with speed and balance, you can win with length and power, or failing all that, you could just win with pure technique and instinct. There isn't just one method to get the job done, after all, which is why the NFL is littered with so many pass rushers of different shapes and sizes. But every now and then, there comes a prospect that enters the league that defies all conventional labels. These rare, almost generational athletes that can win in not just one or two ways, but in any and every way. The kinds of freaks that don't just have explosiveness or power or length or technique, but rather have the whole package. A few years ago, when Myles Garrett was coming out of Texas A&M, I thought he was the apex of pass rushing prospects. He had it all. Every trait you could think of on the checklist, it was there. And at the time, I thought Garrett was the highest grade I would ever give out for a defensive end. But then, over the past few years since Garrett has entered the league, someone else has emerged in the college ranks. Someone that, in my opinion, is even better. I'm not a believer in perfect prospects per se, but I will say this. If there ever was a perfect defensive end, Ohio State's Chase Young might be it. I tried hard to find a weakness in his game this week, I really did, but truthfully, there just isn't one. His first step is magnificent, his bend around the corner is incredible for his size, his hands and feet are so well trained for his age, and his versatility in alignment out of any stance you want him in makes him virtually scheme-proof. He's almost so gifted it's unfair, but I think what I like the most about Young is how his presence on the field alone can completely eliminate entire sections of an offensive game plan. When we think about how offenses are designed, particularly how pass protection is designed to fit around certain route concepts, every offensive coordinator on earth is operating under one fairly reasonable assumption: that their offensive tackles, no matter how good or bad they are, can just buy the quarterback 2.7 seconds. In most cases, that's all they're going to need, just 2.7 seconds, because that's about the average time from snap to release in the NFL. But when Young is on the field, if he's left one-on-one, that 2.7 second rule no longer applies, and everything on offense has to be changed. Protections are adjusted to slide his way, the plays you call typically develop quicker, like screens or short passes that he can't disrupt as easily, and sometimes you don't even try to block him in the run game either, you just run option or zone read directly at him and hope he takes the wrong guy. Inevitably, your entire offensive philosophy will be different because of Chase Young's presence, unless you commit overwhelming resources to stopping him. And if you don't do either of those things, he has the potential to violate that 2.7 second rule on every single snap. That reshuffling of the board, that forced adjustment to the game plan, that is why he's so valuable, because it allows the defense to dictate to the offense and not the other way around. I'll give you an example just to help you visualize his impact. One of the main ways that offensive tackles try to buy that time in the first place is by pushing edge rushers around the back of the pocket when they try to win on a speed rush, preferably to a depth of about 10 to 11 yards. They don't need to outright shut down that speed all the time, they just need to put up enough resistance so that by the time the pass rusher can turn that corner, they're too deep behind the pocket to hit the quarterback, who's usually stepping up to about an 8-yard depth himself. That's really all they need, just that 2 yards of difference in depth in order to buy that necessary time. But Young is so explosive and so technically developed that tackles can't reliably provide those 2 yards if they're trying to block him one-on-one. They can't even get their hands on him off the snap most of the time because he's so deadly with cross.
Man, is that exciting or is that exciting, man? That's exciting. Dude, if that guy falls to 3, Bob Quinn, if you pull a Bob Quinn and you take, I swear to God, I'll go up to Detroit and I'll do an Eddie on you, man. I will do an Eddie on you. If Chase Young falls to the Lions at 3 and you take a tackle or some crazy, an offensive tackle or some crazy ass Bob Quinn thing that you like to do, dude, I swear to God, I'll take a break. You know what? If they do such a thing, I'm going to say it right now. If Chase Young is on the board and Bob Quinn goes Bob Quinn, I will take a break from the Lions. I will break up with the Lions until they wash Bob Quinn out of their hair. And that's saying a lot for me, man. That is a ton. Let's get back into it, dude. It's too good. It's too good.
Well under 2.7 seconds, he will ruin your passing game if he's left alone. We see him win with speed to the edge. We see him then read tackles oversetting to the edge, so he'll counter back inside and win even faster. We see him come free on stunts before centers can even react. I mean, the speed at which he moves for a 265-pounder is just remarkable. And for all but the most athletic offensive lineman, he is just too much to handle. Physically, he's a mismatch for everyone, and both the opposing offense and his...
I'm sorry, I had to go change my pants. I had to go change my pants. It's too much for this old heart to take, my friends. This guy, dude... He gets me excited, man. I'm passionate about football. I love football. I love the Detroit Lions. And man, oh man, would he look good in one of these. One of these, man. Listen, if Tua doesn't happen, the trade down doesn't happen, nothing but good things can happen to us. And if Chase Young happens, man, I am so excited for it to happen. Now, my buddy Ken, right, Mr. Noel, is there anything at all, can we come up with anything that's wrong with Chase Young? Is Chase Young a defensive end Jesus type of situation? Let's look, let's see. It can't be all good, right? Let's take a look.
And that influential. If I was going to try to nitpick anything from him, and I mean the smallest of details, it's just that his swipe move was so good that sometimes he would tunnel vision on that one combo and try it over and over again, even when tackles were playing specific techniques to stop it, and he would sometimes take way too long to try something else, even when those same tackles were basically offering themselves up to counter moves on a silver platter. I think back to that Penn State game, for instance, where he still got 3 sacks, mind you, but he very easily could have had double that number if he just recognized that freshman left tackle Rasheed Walker was consistently using a hug technique with really wide hands late in the rush to protect himself from that swipe, which is a good technique to contain a speed rush, by the way, because you're basically just catching the rush and redirecting it harmlessly behind the pocket, like I said earlier. But as a consequence of using that technique, tackles will literally just leave their chest wide open and beg pass rushers not to just run right through them with power. And for some reason, Young never recognized what Walker was doing to him so that he could counter it. I mean, it took all the way until the fourth quarter for him to finally punish that technique with a bull rush, and it immediately worked on the first try to disrupt and ruin a play. But then he never used it again, so I'm not really sure if that was more on him or more on his coaches. And while I guess I could consider him not punishing Walker as a negative when I give him a final grade, I mean, shit, he still had 3 sacks that day while literally only using one move on 95% of his snaps, so that's still pretty ridiculously impressive. Truth be told, when I watched...
There is not much that you can say about this guy's game that, hey, he used the arm rip too many times. Man, I've looked at the cut-ups, and I kind of feel the same way. Well, let me be honest. At first, I was like, well, you know what? I think he takes plays off. Those were some of the things that kind of came through on film for me. And then I sat down and I looked at Mr. Knowles' video, and then I got to talk with him a little bit about it. And then I went back and looked at the film again. And God bless America, man. I was wrong. He pointed out some things on how to watch and what to watch. And I'm better for it. But listen, guys, there's not a whole lot of knock in this guy's game. This guy is the real deal. If he falls to the Detroit Lions, I will be so happy. Give me your thoughts. Again, I'd like you to hit the like button below you. The subscribe button would be awesome too. I've got time on my hands with the COVID-19, so I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of all of the blessings that God has given me with equipment. I've got microphones, I got computers, I've got digital cameras, I've got all kinds of good things that, hey, maybe I can express myself and put out some decent content. I hope you guys have enjoyed the content. Tomorrow I'll be doing another player. I'm not sure if I'm going to do Isaiah Simmons or Jeff Okudah, but eventually, before we get to the draft, I'm going to get to some guys that I really like, that are going to be later round picks. And whenever you're trying to do this, again, it's hard to crawl inside the empty ears, the empty cavern that lies between Bob Quinn's ears. But so I don't ever try to do that. I'll just give you who I think is good and what I think is good, but there's no rhyme or reason trying to understand what Bob Quinn might do or what Bob Quinn might not do. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Peace out.